Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Streets of Rage 1 Blaze Hardest speedrun. So this is a bit of a black sheep of the community because it is by far the hardest run that you can do with this game. Maybe not personally with the Blaze, but the hardest solo is one of the hardest run that you can do because of all the little nitty-gritty stuff. If you miss one thing, you can lose a lot of time. So we're gonna have a lot of fun. cestpatou is gonna do his best and hopefully show you some of his tricks. So the time will start when the feet of Blaze will touch the ground once a small screen will fade out. So I'm gonna go with the 3, 2, 1, go. He's gonna start the game, but there's still going to be about 8.5 seconds before the time starts. So when you're ready, please just shake your head. And the run starts now. So the first level is a very classic first level. We have a lot of these blue enemies, which are called Garcias, and yellow ones, which are called Signals. So these enemies are pretty much the basic one that we're going to be encountering in the game. They have a bit more HP than on the easy and normal mode, which makes it a bit hard. So Blaze has a lot of combos. She can spin around and do a lot of damage. She can grab and then do some little knee tricks. But then the most powerful thing that you're going to see in this run is the pivot attack. So Pat is going to try and set up these pivot attacks where enemies are flanking in both sides. He's going to try to go like beside object to make sure no one is coming from the down or up. And he really wants to have them about an arm away from him, left and right, and then he can do the maximum damage. So in the first level, it's one of the easiest just because the enemies don't have much life. The enemies will have a bit more life toward the end of the game, and what makes this hard is just that some combos are just easy to do. If there's one of the guys that run away, you can just go back and get him and then do a bit of damage, and you just lose 2 or 3 seconds. But on the hardest, when you get with enemies that have like 13 HP, this could result in about a loss of 10 to 15 seconds, which is pretty much just, the run is dead. So what's cool with this run is that even though that you can So I see people talking about Blaze as a character in the chat, so might as well go with this. So Blaze is not the best character in the game, but what she lacks with power, she has with speed. So since we're doing the speed run, Blaze is the best character because she can go slightly faster than the screen scroll speed, which makes her perfect to just catch up if you're not as perfect going to the end of the... Like, you always are going to see Pat go to the right end of the stage to make sure that all the enemies spawn as fast as possible. So Blaze is pretty good at just catching up when he's not at the right side of the stage, and he has to go as far as possible to the right. So one of the things Pat is actually known for is just his item game. So you're going to see him pick up the knives, the bats, and sometimes the lead pipe toward the end of the game. but pretty much the knife is the best all-around item in the game. It does 5 damage, which usually one-shots the small enemies in easy and normal, but you can do that in hardest, since they have a tiny bit more HP, so he's gonna have to hit them twice. But the items are very safe. They can do a lot of damage to multiple enemies at the same time, and they usually, when you're surrounded by enemies, it's good to push them back a little bit. Otherwise, when you get surrounded by the enemies, it just gets completely impossible to fight them in the hardest. They're just going to start hitting you, and you're going to lose a life. And when you lose a life, all the enemies will fall to the ground. So now we're going to start seeing a bit more of these Electras, which are the women with the whips. We've seen them in the first level, but then they're not really hard. They have a low amount of HP. Toward the end of the games, they're going to be some of the focal points for Pat to be to take off first, since they always try to have these gimmicky animation, which take 5 to 6 seconds if you don't hit them properly. So right now they're not really dangerous, but we're going to see them a bit more dangerous toward the end of the run. Right now, Pat is actually on a superb time, since the first level was really easy, so trying to catch a bit of time, like 2.2 seconds in the first stage, and then still being green by the second stage is still pretty good. We're going to see him catch massive amount of time if he gets like good path and good routing toward the 4th and 5th stage. He can go up to 20 seconds, but still it doesn't mean that he's going to get an all-around good time, since all the dangerous things in this run are going to happen toward the end. So 6th and 8th level are usually the big run killer, where you can lose 45 seconds for just missing a frame per second or so. Coming right up is one of the coolest screens in the stage, in the game, where he's going to use the knife to take out as many enemies as possible in the next one. It's always one of the coolest things to watch, I think, in the run, because it looks easy. It's just, oh, he has a knife and he's just stabbing these people, trying to save the day. But the knife is so hard to use, because when you don't stab the person exactly on their track, he's going to throw the knife. So he has to be extremely precise, and he's going to be surrounded by a lot of enemies, but everything is routed for him to be able to save them all at the same time. So there, you shoot the knife because it's more rewarding to go with the pivot attack once you don't have the routing done anymore. He's always going to try to, like, he's not really hitting them. He's going to like move up, down, make sure that they all bundle up, because what you want to maximize is just the amount of damage per second. And when you line them up and bundle them up, it's just easy to just do multiple jabs, which all do 1 damage, but when you spin around super fast, you can get multiple hits at the same time, and it just drains their life very quickly. So right there, that was great. You just stunned the 2 enemies to make sure that you could get between the other enemies that were up there, and then when you arrive there, the other ones bundle with the one above. So that's actually a good time save there. You could have lost 5 to 6 seconds just on that. So this boss is Abba Dede. He's a pro wrestler. We're gonna see him a bit more toward the end of the run, because he's a like small boss that will appear in the 5th level, and we're gonna see him again in the 8th level, which has that Mega Man-like boss rush that you're gonna get throughout the level. So for, as I said, 1, 2, 3, not a lot of deviance. He's still pretty much within his time, but these levels are, I don't want to say easy, but they're routed in a way that makes it very consistent. Now we're going to see a lot more enemies. So the yellow signals that we had earlier sometime will now spawn as purple signals. These signals have significantly more HP, and also basically sometime we'll do some attacks better, or they have a lot of AI differences, and I could talk about it for a while, but for now, the big AI that you want to look out for are either passive or aggressive. We've lost co-op runs to passive bosses, passive like Darkus, these little blue ones which looks like the basic enemies. We've lost multiple runs because they just don't want to attack you. They're going to wait for you to have your back turned to them, or they don't want to see the second player looking at them. In solo, though, it gets a bit easier to control them because there's only one player on which the AI can base itself, so you don't have to read your friend's movement. So here in the fort level, Pat has these holes down there in which he can throw the enemies. At first, it was one of the strats that was used because especially the I don't want to say monster, but the mobsters, just like this Jack right there, has a lot of HP, so sometimes it's good to throw them down, but with time you learn that the pivot attack can do just as much damage as you would have setting up the whole throw. But if you pick up with us, you're going to see a lot of throws above holes because Street of Rage is all about throwing. And yeah, you see the where Pat got hit right there twice, where he gets thrown by the signal. That actually can cause a glitch to happen in which you get infinitely thrown and you are stuck there forever. It happened to us. It's basically some kind of soft lock in which the AI is stuck in a loop, and you just get thrown forever and you have to restart the game. That happened multiple times in runs where where he had good time. Here on this last screen for the stage 4, there are a lot of enemies that have a lot of HP. So he's going to have to be extremely careful because if he gets hit, he could die extremely quickly. So he's going to try to use the invincibility frame on the throws like that to avoid getting hit sometimes. So sometimes it looks like it's slower, he shouldn't be throwing and more hitting, but these throws are not really offensive, but defensive just in order to avoid getting hit by other enemies, because you're just going to go in some kind of a lock, and if there's thousands of enemies around you, they're just going to hit you until you die. So this is the easiest boss in the game. It's just like the first boss, but there's no, oh, yeah. When you get hit though, he does a lot of damage. So now Pat used police strat, which is one of the safe strat against bosses that, because usually the boss is extremely easy when you start them right, but as soon as something goes wrong, you could lose a minute. We've had run where we lost a minute and a half on a single boss just because we missed a tiny input. So using the police is just a consistent way of saying, maybe I could do that faster, but I don't want to lose a minute, which is usually extremely good. So there, he's just going to kick them backward to make sure they're all lined up. You can see the game having trouble displaying things because there's too many enemies on the screen. That happened a lot also in the level 3, and that causes lag, which makes it a bit harder for Pat to time his input when he tries to hit the enemies. So we got here on the 5th stage. The little substations themselves are not the hardest. Like you can see here, he's going to use the police strat twice, so it's not really a very hard level. But at the end, there's a boss, and this is probably the hardest boss to get in the game, because if you don't know the strat to kill the boss, you just spend 2.5 minutes to 3 minutes fighting them. It's two girls that are extremely agile and that are going to be avoiding, they're mostly going to avoid all your hits. They don't care about actually hitting you or doing damage. They're all passive, all they do is try to run away. But there is one way to damage them both at the same time that is probably the only way that has been found in single player to do them that quick. We're gonna see them twice in this level, the 5th level, and towards the end, right before the last boss, because they're probably the hardest thing to do this in this game. The last boss is actually easier, in my own opinion. right here, Pat's using again the vent to make sure no enemies can hit him from below. This is extremely important, as I said, because the more you go into the game, the enemies will do a lot of damage. On hardest, it just takes 3 or 4 punches to lose a life, so Pat really wants to avoid getting damaged. Usually in the easy and normal, it's not really a problem to get hit. You even get a hit on purpose just to make sure to have a free hit on another enemy. But on hardest, it's not possible to just try and get hit on purpose. You're going to die super fast if any enemies try to start hitting you. So Pat now is going to try to launch the police like that. This substage has the white jacks, which looks like they're not juggling anything. These have a stupid amount of HP, and even though they're not really hard to beat per se, they're just extremely long. So you can just one-hit them with the police strat, which is why Pat did it here. So we're getting to the last screen, in which he's going to have the first big hurdle of the run, which is going to be the boss I told you about earlier. I'm going to leave him without commentary during the during the boss because he needs to concentrate on the music and the timings. But let's check it out. That was amazing. Seriously, that was a great boss. He did it pretty much the fastest he could have done it. Just so you know, this strat is actually so hard. I've tried multiple times. I practiced a lot. I've never been able to do it twice. And I don't mean by like beating them twice, to grab them twice. I've never been able to do that because, I don't know, it's just a crazy hard strat that requires precise timing when pivoting, because they're going to get out of it as soon as you miss a single frame. And when you miss them, you have to realign them, which is pretty much the hardest thing to do. So right there, one of these Electras, the black Electras with the leather suit, it's the one of the big hurdles in the game that just looked like it was super easy. Pat is not allowed to hit her with anything else than a grab. Otherwise, she's just going to go to the ground and weep for a while, and that's going to lose a lot of time. So these press are not really a problem. There are a couple glitches that you can use them to kill the enemies, but it's not as fast as just spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, kicking like a tornado. That usually does a trick toward the end, because all the enemies are just big tanks, impossible to kill. One of the things I actually wanted to talk about in this game is that when you play on easy and normal, it's not really about putting them in a bundle, because usually you can just kill them one by one. It's almost faster than just putting them in a bundle. So in single player, it's more about reading their behavior one by one, getting the kill, and then passing to something else. But on artists, you have to reroute everything and change your playstyle, because it's not about killing them one by one. It's all about doing that pivot attack. It's the only thing that can save you on hardest. There's no way to get a world record by not spamming this. But if you look the other runs on easy and normal, it's perfectly fine not to do this. There are multiple ways to get the kills on pretty much all the enemies without using this spin attack. So even though it's quite hard and it requires a lot of precision, don't be afraid to start the game because of the spin attack. You can do just fine with not only multiple characters, but by not playing hardest, you don't really need to do this. So Pat is going to come up to what I think is the biggest run killer. So it's pretty much the second level boss, where you had this cheap Wolverine, as we call it. But there's going to be 2 of them. So what you have to know about this guy is that he's the best unit in the game. He's tall, he has range, he has speed, he has horrendous damage. He has the best reactions of all the monsters. He's basically the best unit in the game, and you have to beat two of them at the same time while getting only 4 hits to die, and they requiring about like 70 hits. So it's not really a fair fight, but if he gets the strat, it should be great. If he doesn't see the strat, if he doesn't get the strat, as soon as he misses it, it gets pretty much the hardest boss in the game. So let's hope he does that correctly. So toward the end here, we see why like Streets of Rage gets difficult and hardest. There's tons of enemies. All the enemies have a horrendous amount of HP, and it reflects on just how hard it is throughout the game, just because you have to really bundle them up, and they all have different AI, so every single move that you do is really important. It's not really a game about muscle memory more than it is than to just understand the fundamentals of the game and being able to apply them at will. So here we are at the hardest button. Okay, so this is the first part. So he got it. So as soon as this one is alone, even though it's still hard if he misses it, it's super easy because he doesn't have to worry about the second one hitting him in the back. So I'd say this is a huge win. Even though if he just missed one grab, it's actually a huge win to get the first without getting hit. So see, he just got the 20-second right there from just getting this boss. So the round 7 is actually like this bonus stage that everyone wants to see. It just looks cool. It's not really about skill, it's not really about anything else. It's just about having fun and throwing people off a gigantic elevator that goes up a building that has no limit. So he also will be doing the spin attack multiple times because, as always, it's the quickest way to go. But as soon as there's a single enemy, it's always the fastest way to dispose of it. So if he gets hit, you might see Pat just jumping off the building. Usually it's not really a problem to lose a life on round 7 because during the animation of the elevator going up, you don't suffer a time penalty for killing yourself, but it regens all your life. So since we know you can lose a life in about 4 to 5 hits, it's always a good thing to be able to replenish your life at will with no time consequences. So yeah, this stage is basically the equivalent of an auto-scroller, but with a bit more fun because, you know, you get to throw people up a building. So even though we're using a bit of an ill language to talk about the split, you have to think about these things. We're killing people off building to save the day, but at the end of the day, someone is going to have to deal with all these people that have fell from a 37th floor building. So please think about these people when you do this, guys. So now Pat is probably going to take the bat or not. It depends on usually how he feels, but on co-op it's always a good thing to take the bat here, but when he goes single player, sometimes throwing them is easier because, well, they just wait for a single player and it's easier to control them. So all of these black electrodes here, if you didn't throw them off the building, they would have lost about 5 seconds each sweeping on the ground. So it's sad you didn't get to see just how bad it is not to miss them, but good thing to have had to not even activating them once. So right now, Pat is really on a good time. What you guys don't know is that the splits right there is new TV that he just set up earlier today. So he actually saved off a good amount of time on his previous record today while practicing, and this is reflecting right now because the last boss is one of the big time killer as with the other two bosses. But the problem with the last boss is that he didn't get it on his last run. So if he gets a good boss right there, it could be an enormous time save and probably a personal best. So now we're on the level 8, which is the boss rush. They're basically going to send in all the enemy types we've been saying since the beginning of the run, a couple tables. We're going to see every single boss we've seen from the beginning, but we're not going to see the second boss double that he had to face on a 6th level. That we get spared from this one because otherwise it would be extremely hard to get a good time on hardest. But other than that, we're going to see the Boomerang Addict, which is the first boss. We're going to see the Cheap Wolverine, and all these fabulous bosses that have been named and have a lore, but is usually from Streets of Rage 2, because when you see the enemies in Streets of Rage 2, you get to see their name and their life bar, which is a nice part that adds to the lore of the game. So right there, these signals are one of the difficult things that we have to deal with when they're trying to spin like that. So they can start their slide from farther away than you can punch. So if you're currently punching a bunch of people around you, they can just decide to go behind and just start sliding and breaking everything. There's no way to hit them while they're sliding. They're basically invincible. So it's one of the things that we have to deal with. He's going to get this Jack here because, as I said earlier, this guy just has a lot of HP, and it's a pain to have to deal with him while you're surrounded by a bunch of other enemies. So again, it's not really a bad problem that he got hit over the table, because as you see, when over time the enemies tend to just go around him and turn around, so it's also a good thing for him to start the pivot attack. So you see the second boss, which is, this guy requires a perfect pivot input when you try to grab him. So while it seems easy, I've never been able to beat this guy alone myself. The pivot timing required for the first boss and the second boss are completely different. So while we play co-op, we usually use a second strat that is a bit safer, but actually the easiest probably boss that you get to fight the game. So people don't know that, but one of the cool things about Streets of Rage is that the character that we get to play, Blaze Fielding, which is the character Pat is playing, and there's also Axel and Adam. We're all ex-police officers in their ripe 20s, as in ripe 21 and 22 years old maximum. We don't know what happened and why they're not police officers anymore, but we're gonna have to trust in their wisdom that they can take over the crime syndicate. That I mean, let's give it to them. They're not using guns. This is a very clean crime syndicate. They have a lot of goons that they hired, probably like professional martial artists from across the world, but they never stoop that low as to use a gun. So let's at least give a thumbs up to Mr. X for the clean crime execution. So now we get to see why this game is so hard. These ninjas will just start hitting you, and they all have extremely long range. And Pat is using Blaze, which is the character with the most range in the game. It gets a bit harder when you get to Adam and Axel, which while they're good, well, Axel is even better than Blaze, but while they're good, they lack the range. They only have power. Adam doesn't have anything, actually. He just has a little bit of range on his jumping attack. But other than that, Axel has a ton of damages that can probably take care of most enemies way faster than Blaze could. So Blaze has that little range on his jab, which arguably makes it easier to do the spin attack, but not really. yes, Armor 87, we are just blazing through this game. But it's the fastest character. What can I say? Sometimes you just need to shave off some frame in the running, so. And but she really isn't that much faster, but it does add up towards the end of the game to about like at least 25, 30 seconds, because this game is all about running forward while beating the enemies. So Pat will now have to face the level 5 boss, the two girls again, which are right before Mr. X, the last boss. If he gets them perfectly and then gets the boss perfectly, he could get a really good time in it. So for the last boss, we've been searching all that we can to find a strategy that could work for one player. We've been able to find co-op strategy that works pretty well, in which we're almost 100% confident that we get it every time. But in single player, it's not the same. You have two enemies that are trying to hit you at the same time as the boss, this is horrible. Like really, it's just horrible. Basically, he misses one grab, he just gets hit, the boss kills you in 2 hits, that's it, restart almost. So he's sending in some goons, looks easy. He's going to do a little strut with the lead pipe in the ground, which is going to let him grab the boss and throw someone back so that he can have his timing straight. But there you go, one hit, and then that's a lot of damage. Now he's going to go and try to improv, because this boss is just extremely hard. But still, now he gets a pretty good combo there, so the enemies will not try to hit him while he's already hitting someone else. So not only Mr. X is the only one that uses gun, the enemies don't want to fight them all at once if he's grabbing one of the other big bosses. So as soon as you grab one of the bosses, you can actually lead the other Garcias into not hitting you, which is pretty much what he wants to do for the whole fight. But it's crazy hard to have both of them set up to do this. So time will come up when the screen goes dark. It takes a little bit because Mr. X really likes to be dramatic about his death. And time. So Pat, come back please. Thank you everyone for bearing with me, and have a good evening.